Welcome back to the show, everybody. This is the Upper Tier Podcast. It's Wednesday. It's Pro Wrestling Weekly. Got a great show lined up for you tonight. We got plenty of shows to preview. What a mega week of wrestling coming up. Unbelievable. These men are going to be very busy, and we're on the panel here. They're going to have plenty to say. Sean, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Good. Thanks for having you. You're part of the furniture now. What do you mean, thanks for having me?
I am. It's
The
great. It's
expectation is you're
great.
going to be here. You're going to be here. Bren wearing that beautiful Ultimate Warrior shirt. I like that, Bren, one of my all-time favourites. How are we? How was Poland?
Poland was brilliant. Loved every second of it, but it's good to be back. Big Cena fans in Poland is what I've learned. Everything is super Cena, super Cena. Not sure what it meant, but yeah, look, great to be back. And coming back to 25 degrees weather here in Dublin, unbelievable.
It's supposed to be a heat wave this weekend as well. Heat wave coming this weekend, apparently. Well, folks, if you could subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification button and drop a like on the video as well. And get involved in the chat if you can as well. Our other podmaster is in the chat here already. Hello, gentlemen. Hope you are keeping well and have a great show. I'll pop in if I'm around. Looking forward to my ill-fated, lowly anticipated return 1 week. Hence, there we go. Daz is in as well. Big up, Daz. What's the crack, Niall and panel? All good. Acers is in as well. Looking forward for the Roman Reigns pop on Saturday night's main event. I tell you, there's a lot of people looking forward to Roman Reigns coming back. Yeah, we will be talking about Saturday night's main event shortly as well, and we'll be touching on Raw and everything else. But I have to say, lads, looking at the build up to this Goldberg Gunther match, did we get it wrong initially? It seems to be some crowd behind this at the moment, that's for sure. But before we start the show, lads, I'd like to say R.I.P. Rest in peace to John Nesbitt. John would be the guitar player in Ian's band. Not Ian's band, their band, Soldiers of Fortune. It's a Tin Lizzy tribute band, of course, to the great man Phil Loyney. Ian's the lead singer on it, but John, the guitar player, sadly passed away on Saturday about 7 p.m., just as one of his favourite bands, Pantera, was taken to the stage at the Ozfest, the Back to the Future or Back to the Past or whatever it was called, and up in Birmingham there and stuff like that. So very, very sad. So our thoughts and prayers go out to John's immediate family, but also to the Soldiers of Fortune, the band Ian and all the lads there. I'm sure they're finding it very tough to come to terms with the loss of John, the guitar player, and from all the messages coming in and all the outpouring of love and support and stuff like that. It sounds like he was a great chap. I think I met him once in the Harbour Bar, but absolutely sound fella. Absolutely, from what I heard, loved his music, loved playing guitar, loved talking about music, and the whole social scene and band and performing is what he lived for and all. And yeah, so very, very sad and no age to pass away either. So listen, Ian, we're thinking about you, right? And the band and his family, and our thoughts and prayers go out to everyone, okay? Right. Before we want to start, we want to get you guys in the chat involved as we always do. Big up Baz. Baz was in me today. All good, my friend. All good. We want to get you guys in the chat and gals, if you're there, involved in tonight's show. This is an interesting one. I passed it on to the boys, but we'll talk about it later. But we'll flash it up now. And what we want you to do is we want you to think about a wrestler or wrestlers, or if you want a male and a female, whatever way you want to do it, who you thought was going to be huge and make it big and be the next Rock or Austin or Triple H or whatever it is, but they failed to do it. So give me your thoughts on that. It can be from any generation. Go back as much as you want. Give us a couple if you want, but drop them into the chat and let us know. Not quite now, but in a little bit. And we'll give you our thoughts on it towards later on in the show before we do the history and stuff. But let us know. A wrestler you thought was going to hit the big time, had everything, and just didn't deliver, just failed. Fell short, as they say. All right, that'll be a nice topic. Right, gents, let's start with Monday Night Raw. Talk to me. Take it away. Brian, you kick us off.
Yeah, Monday Night Raw starts off with the Empire division. They don't quite have a name yet. I think this was a good segment because it kind of set out some of their goals, but again, for me, it just lacked identity. What I loved at the start, though, was Breaker before Rollins said and grabbing the mic. It was really cool, great moment. You could see it when they were coming down. The crowd going mental for Breaker. I think it's probably a bit too early to see those seeds of doubt within the group. And by the end of the show, I kind of got thinking about Breaker himself, and I actually think it would probably be a good idea to take Breaker out of that group, and replace him with somebody else, because he has it. He's undeniable. His little voice crack, how he covered that then later on. It was a good opening. Paul Heyman, as always, masterful promo. But I think Reed has more of a place there than Breaker. It's time for Breaker to break her free, if you will. But look, not a bad start. Sets the tone for the show, and they did exactly what they set out to do. Although one of the things they set out to do was a bit disappointing, which we'll touch on later on in the show. But yeah, this was a good opening. But again, it kind of left me asking more questions about this group. And like, even it kind of goes on to it in the next segment. One of the things I was thinking about this group is Judgment Day, as I say every week, shouldn't be together, but they've got all the gold. They've got everything that the lad should have. Now, obviously, there's no women in this group, so I kind of get that, but it's about the aesthetic. So, yeah, look, good opening. I probably waffled on a bit there. Set the tone for the show, and as always, a real joy to watch Breaker and Heyman on the mic.
Very good. I have to say, this was my favorite episode of Sami Zayn Monday Night Raw, but we'll save that for later. But I certainly very much enjoyed it, I have to say. Sean, Kairi Sane defeating women's tag team champ Roxanne Perez.
Yeah, this was a pretty stellar match. I feel like each week we're getting to see that bit in more in depth to Raquel Rodriguez. We talked, I think maybe just a few weeks back, or maybe even last week on the podcast, how she had such a plain character after her bringing up from NXT, and I feel like we've got to see nothing of what she has got, and I feel like lately, just in the past maybe 2 or 3 weeks, we're starting to see a bit more of that. Um, you know, Kairi Sane is a great talent too, former NXT Women's Champion, and I feel like that really shows she is very good in ring, and that insane elbow is just it's beautiful. It's one of the best women's finishers, I think. Yeah, it was a pretty good match between Roxanne and Kyrie last night. As I've said, Roxanne has that star quality, that star power. Definitely a future women's champion or women's world champion. So yeah, hopefully, I'd like to see them cross paths again. So yeah, hopefully we'll get to see that good match last night.
Yeah, I have to say, Kairi Sane's been excellent since she came back, just going from strength to strength.
Yeah.
Probably one of my favorite moments on Raw, Braun Breaker defeating Sami Zayn. Bren, that spear.
So it's funny you mentioned the spear. It's the best spear in the wrestling business at the moment. And if I'm WWE, I take away the spear from everybody else. I think you might have mentioned that previously, to be fair. Now it's just unfortunate that fortunate or unfortunate that Goldberg is kind of doing a bit of a comeback at the moment. But that spear is ridiculous. He absolutely destroyed Sami Zayn. A proper right out. This was a proper right out. Now you know what? Sami Zayn kind of gave me a Mick Foley kind of feel. The way he kind of teased, and he's got that Mick Foley thing inside him. I think a lot of people have already said that in saying that this was a hiding. Like this, like this, it was a bit like watching, say, JBL with somebody who pissed off the company back in the day. He just battered them. Look, overall, this was really, really cool. Sami Zayn, of course, wearing the paper around the stomach to indicate that he had practically broken ribs. That's just wrestling. That's just a wrestling trope. But my God, that was some hiding. What did you think?
If he was pretending to have broken ribs, he definitely had them after it. That's for sure. There's no doubt about it. Is there a case for Braun Breaker having the best spear we've ever experienced in wrestling?
I think so. Genuinely, I think so.
It's not a stretch, is it?
Definitely.
I don't think it's a stretch. We've seen some brilliant spares in the past. One of the weakest I've seen was probably Edge's, if I'm honest with you. That kind of comes to mind. Apart from that one off the ladder against Jeff Hardy. But I think it's the best spare I've seen. by anybody. I think that's a great show.
Yeah, it's the impact of it, isn't it? And even on those ones where he comes running, the pace and the speed and the movement for a guy of his size, it's just it's a sight to behold, really, you know. But yeah, Sammy out indefinitely, as they say, and leading on from the promo that he pulled where he didn't like the beard and he didn't like the look and he didn't like anything about him, and I'm cheerleading in the corner going, yeah,
But
finally.
Even later on in the program, there's a segment with Penta talking to Heyman, and you can just see a little bit of his personality come out there. What does he say? He's like, I don't even know what those words mean either, and I don't like them. He's brilliant. Him and Jacob Fatu. The company's in safe hands. We've got a good future ahead of us. But I totally agree with you. It should be him with just a spare.
Yeah, I seen AJ Lee put a picture up on her Instagram the other day. She was back in the wrestling boots or the cons or that she used to wear. So who knows? Never know. And I think the caption was what? Never say never or something like that. Something like that. Anyway, great show from Keith here. Rhino Spear, absolutely tops. But yeah, it's what a match! Imagine a match between Braun Breaker and Rhino both in their prime. Wow.
In his prime, yeah.
Roman Reigns versus Braun Breaker is going to be an interesting match before the end of the year. Certainly is. Roman better get ready. He better have the bandages ready too. Sean, Lyra Valkyrie took out the Women's Intercontinental Champion and Bayley out of this triple threat match at WWE Evolution. But a lot of people this week calling into question Lyra Valkyria's mic skills.
You know, I'm a big Lyra and Becky fan. We've been over this a few times on the podcast, so I probably am a bit favored towards them both. Wow, this segment Monday night was beautiful. I thoroughly enjoyed every single bit of it. And we always kind of knew and seen from NXT to Lyra's first few weeks on Raw, her mic skills were so. She was very nervous, wasn't very confident in herself. Just following the script, basically. Just saying it how it came out, but there was never any depth, meaning. And wow, her mic skills lately are beautiful. That she's really come on. She's got confidence in herself. Just even you could tell the way she was saying things last night. Like, now I took down a few quotes here, but that whole segment was beautiful, from her interrupting Bailey's entrance to getting in the ring, and when Bailey started talking to Lyra, she said, "She's speaking to me. Lucky me, what a treat." You know, that was a nice wee smart little dig, and then hitting her with the that makes you just like her. That when it comes to both Becky and Bailey, the only thing they want is gold. They don't care about friendships. And I think that was also a nice little dig. And come on, we have to talk about this one that she said, Sunday at Evolution, I hope to rescue that championship from two massive disappointments. That was a lovely dig. I kind of felt that one. I think you could hear the whole crowd feeling it. Of course, I'm looking too in depth into everything, but that's what the show's kind of all about. But overall, definitely really enjoyed this promo last night, and definitely one of my favorites, and it sets it up beautifully for Evolution. I feel like we haven't got too much of a build up, but I feel like if there's one match on the card for Evolution this weekend, which we will hopefully be having a look at later, this is definitely one to look out for, and hopefully it will be our main event.
Can I just come in there for a second?
Absolutely.
Of course.
So, Sean, I actually agree with you. I thought this was a really good segment. What I would say is, who's calling the wrestlers by their government names? The Acers. Drew McIntyre says we're not allowed to do that. So there you go. But come here. look, here's the thing. You're going to half agree with me here. The thing with Lyra is she's getting better on the microphone, and that's all we can ask. She's still in our early days. She's still in our infancy, which is a lot more than what we can say from divas in the past, right? And I'm going to sound like a broken record here. Nikki Bella's not getting any better. Never did get any better. Lyra is getting better. Not only is Lyra getting better, but Lyra backs it up in the ring. Now, WWE logic dictates that if she's coming out on top the Raw before the pay-per-view, she's probably not going to win. And the other thing I'll say on this is, I think we can all agree here. Well, maybe not. I hope this is the last hurrah for the three of them. I think after this, whoever wins, go in another direction. Maybe the other two go off on a little kind of mini feud. But I think that this is kind of the last hurrah for the three. It was very rushed at the start, and I don't think it has a good enough foundation to be still going today. So, look, like I said, I agree with you, Sean. She's getting better by the week. And I agree with Acers there. Like she's probably a better wrestler on the mic. But remember when Becky started? Becky wasn't Mrs. Microphone, and Becky was brilliant here. Her playing devil's advocate was a great little kind of like story. And even I have to say this, and I'll finish on this about that. Before Becky walked out, walking by the New Day, calling Big E a scumbag. It was bleeding hilarious. It was very well done. And the New Day, by the way, shout out to the New Day. They were an absolute delight to watch on Raw. But yeah, no, I just had to throw that out there because I feel she's getting better, and I think people calling for her head because she's not as where they think she should be in the mic is a bit harsh. That's what I think.
Very good. I kind of think I love Lyra. I know her years. I think she's fantastic. I think she's doing brilliant. I think since she's come up onto the main roster, she's absolutely knocked it out of the park. I think the content of the promos, I think is very, very good. I think the kind of delivery and the cadence kind of doesn't match the visual emotion that I see.
Yeah.
Like if you want to not so much be the bad person in this, but if you want to be the person to call other people's shit out, you have to deliver it in a certain way and not in a way that you've sat backstage with an agent and gone through it. You have to deliver it in a way that your face tells me that you mean it. Because when she delivers these promos, I still think backstage she's best buddy with both these girls. And it's not convincing me. Because I actually think, funny enough, I think this weekend, I think Bailey's going to leave with the strap. There you go. So there you go. So that's my general thoughts on it. As a wrestler, I think she's doing brilliant. I think the content in there, I think, is really, really good. But you know the way there's a cadence of delivering that content and a timing aspect to it. And I think as she delivers the lines as well, I think she's not giving the crowd an opportunity for that to hit them and sit and come back. And I think it kind of feels like as if she has a paragraph to deliver and she wants to get the paragraph done and get out of town rather than deliver this line, get a reaction, deliver this line. Like, did you see the part where Bailey turned around and delivered the bitch line in it?
Yeah.
And the crowd go, oh. But she's not like halfway through the next line when the crowd react. So she's allowing the crowd the opportunity to be involved in the promo and in the cadence and the timing and the movement of it. So everything that she says is really, really important because the content is really, really good. But I think it's just the way it's being delivered. It's just slightly off and it's not timed with the emotion of bringing the crowd in. And that's the only thing about it. And obviously that comes in time. You know, it takes a bit of time to get that connection there that you know what to deliver, you know. And like you say with Becky, when Becky delivers a line, the crowd react to that line. When Bailey delivers that, when she goes deep into those things. Like when you listen to Bailey and Becky last night, you fully believe that those two girls have a major problem with Lyra Valkyria. Whereas if you listen to Lyra going back at the two girls, it doesn't carry that same, like, if I see you backstage, I'm absolutely going to F you up. Kind of thing. It's not there yet. So I don't know. We'll see. But that was my only thing on it. And listen, it's a small thing, but it's a really important thing because you can't lose sight of what's important outside of the ropes at the time when you're delivering a go home promo into a big Evolution pay-per-view, Women's Evolution, So that was my only thing on it. Next up, Jey Uso defeating Bronson Reed by disqualification. Bran?
This is what I alluded to earlier on. I think this group suits Bronson Reed, and I think since Bronson Reed has joined this group, because I personally, I just wasn't a fan of his work. He just wasn't my deal. Watching him in this group, I see him. I see so much potential in him. He's doing so well. This probably wasn't his fault, but it was very underwhelming. If you compare that to Breaker given the hide that he gave to Zayn, and because the premise of the whole thing at the start was we're going to lay them out, they're going to be looking at the lights, and that's it. Now, look, if I took 2 tsunamis, I'd probably be in hospital for 2 weeks, but I'm not Jey Uso. And he gave him 2 tsunamis, and the end to me just felt a little bit lackluster. I will say this, it started off cool. Jey looked strong, probably really strong, actually. I thought Jey came across really well, and then the commentator's chair straight to the head was deadly. You just see him run into the ropes and the commentator's chair goes off him. And then after that, it's like, okay, now he's going to kill him. Now he's just going to destroy him. 2 tsunamis, and then everyone's like, go on, time for you to go. The end of this was underwhelming. I expected a lot more from the 2 of them, and I was a bit disappointed, if I'm honest with you. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm always very impressed. Like, I have a love in for Jey Uso because I just think, I followed his whole career, and I just think he's excellent. But I like to see a big guy who can do moves like that. Bronson Reed for me looks like a behemoth of a man. And as I said to you before, if I was sitting on the floor about to take a tsunami, God knows what would go through my mind. To see a guy that size move in air like that and land on you, it's probably the equivalent of, being down at Dublin Port and someone dropping a 20-foot container on you or something. Like you're going to be dead, you know what I mean? And I think it's just, and I think I still maintain what I said last week. And I think they took up on it this week, what we were talking about last week, with how the group in the background is so serious and the group in the foreground can be a little bit goofy. And that's why I think this week suited it better, because the guys now stepped forward kind of out of that shadow of Seth's kind of character. Because the guys' characters are quite dark. They're basically, we're big lads and we're going to fuck you up. And that's their story. Where Rollins is more kind of manipulating. He's more kind of, he gets in your head, plays all that cerebral stuff as well as being an unbelievable performer. Yeah. But I don't look at Seth Rollins the way I look at Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed and go, he'll fuck me up. You know what I mean? Like, if I'm looking at the trade, I'm thinking, I could get in the ring and probably have a good go off Seth, but he'd still probably kill me. But the other 2 guys will put me in hospital, and there's a difference. And I think that's just the case. And it came out, and that's why I was so happy on Monday night to see, as you said, Braun Breaker grabbing the mic, and Seth was just kind of side on looking into Heyman, and Braun delivered his lines. And I thought that Braun, that was really, really cool. And that was kind of, it led on from what we spoke about last week, where if it's going to be a faction, it needs to be the 3 of them, not like security in the background and Rollins putting himself over week in, week out. So it was pretty cool from that point of view. We got a slightly different version of El Grande Americano defeating Dragon Lee. Sean, thoughts?
I mean, National Treasure El Grande Americano. Who doesn't love this man? National Treasure. Genuine. This man could run for president, and even though I can't vote in America, I'd still vote for him. If he looks a bit different, I think he might have got a haircut, but it's hard to tell under the mask.
Also gained about 14 inches in height, and has trimmed down slightly.
That's the camera. That's the camera. That's what the camera does.
The camera, instead of adding 40 pounds, you lose it,
Took it off, yeah.
Yeah,
for a,
took it
for a
off.
change.
Took it right off. Yeah, this was actually quite an enjoyable match. It's nice to see the same El Grande Americano on my TV every weekend. Definitely not someone different. Wink, wink. Yeah, I enjoyed this match. It's good to see Dragon Lee back on my TV. He's been kind of underutilized, I should say. Kind of was quite big for that little bit when he came in, and then all just kind of died down. So it's nice to see that the company still has enough faith in him to put him on my TV every once in a while, you know. Yeah, overall quite an enjoyable match.
Yeah. Dragon Lee is one of those guys, isn't he? Like, he's a solid performer, really. And
Yeah.
he's a go-to guy that you can put out there. Still gives you that lucha effect, but in a very, very controlled manner as well, and stuff like that. He comes across to me as a consummate professional, really. That's how I would describe him. But very, very good. And big things. I see big things in Dragon Lee's future, actually, especially with all the AAA stuff and everything that's coming online. So it looks really good at the moment. Then we got the confrontation. We got the Goldberg pop. We've been wrong all along. Everyone wanted this. Brad.
100%. Well, I think I've been saying it from the start. I think he deserves this. This was ridiculous. The thing with wrestling is, as wrestling fans, we know something when we can feel it, and you could feel this. This was tangible. As soon as the car pulled up, which was cool. I'm not a car guy, but that was deadly. He comes out, and the crowd is going nuts. And here's the thing: I was talking. Somebody on TikTok commented on the video I put up about the show, and they had said, "I'm curious to see how this would go." And I thought, well, I'm curious as well, because I'm leaning towards Goldberg losing. I'm leaning towards that. But Jesus Christ, this is unpredictable. It's a Keith Seri. Very good.
Keith told us last week he had become interested. So it's not fully true, Keith.
If my suspicions are correct, now, to be honest, when we get to the predictions later on, I'm going to pick Gunther. I think I'm leaning towards Gunther, but there's something inside of me saying that Goldberg wins. It's the Brock Lesnar match that he had that I thought Brock was going to destroy him, and he beats him in seconds. You think of the match that he had with the Fiend, all this stuff, and you think there's no way this Goldberg's coming in to put him over. And then one thing that Michael Cole said that has me thinking, he said it last week and he said it again this week, was, I asked Goldberg, what happens if you win the title? And Goldberg's response was, that would be an interesting dilemma. And it will be. So I actually think one of two things is going to happen. Well, obviously, one of two things is going to happen. Right. But I think Goldberg wins. But I think no matter who wins, I think now is the time. I think maybe give Goldberg the win, get the visual with the title, and Gunther gets up, smashes his face in, out comes the cash in, job done. That's what I'm thinking. In saying that, I just don't know. But look, this segment was deadly. Gunther's been a diamond during this, by the way, as well. It's worth pointing that out. He's been brilliant during this. But that Goldberg reaction, it's authentic. It's real. And I reckon he has a 50% chance winning 233s and a third. Some Steiner maths for you there, boys. But look, like I said, I'm curious to see which way it goes. I agree with the TikTok person that said that. We'll see what happens, but this was deadly. I'm pumped for this match. I'm looking forward to see who wins. Does it go over 4 or 5 minutes? If it does go over 4 or 5 minutes, do they kind of kill it? Is there a cash in? They've left us with more questions and a seed of doubt, and I think that's important. What say you,
Sean?
I feel like, Bren, you're so right about that. It definitely gives us that little glimmer of hope, you know. And as you said, it's very unpredictable. And last night, or I keep thinking today is Tuesday. You've got me into the habit of Tuesday now. Monday night, that segment definitely gave us that glimmer of hope, and it has me pumped for the match as well. And I'm 50-50. I'd like to see Goldberg win this too. See what happens from there. So yeah, definitely really enjoyed the segment.
do you think there's going to be a cash in, though?
I don't
That what
know.
you're
I feel
calling?
like he could leave it for SummerSlam, maybe.
That might be a bit
I
predictable,
don't.
maybe.
But I think, yeah, I think that might be too predictable. I think they'd want to go for somewhere or some pay-per-view you wouldn't expect.
It's Saturday Night Main Event 40 as well. So who knows? What do you think, Niall?
Yeah.
I've a funny feeling that we're gonna get a. We've been talking about Rollins' group, haven't we?
Mhm.
And I've a funny feeling we're gonna get. I think we could see Goldberg potentially win, Rollins cash in, Punk try to stop it, Gunther taking care of Punk, Rollins wins the belt,
Go on.
and you see Gunther there dressed in as black joins the faction and becomes your fourth or your fifth man, depending on how you want to look at it.
Chef's kiss, literally.
That would be brilliant. Like, even listening
That would
there
be lovely.
gets a bit exciting, but I cannot see him joining the group. I hope next week we're having a conversation and I'm saying, do you know what, Niall? You are spot on. That was deadly. If it ends like that, I think that's a quality.
What if Saturday Night Main Event ends with the four boys and Heyman in the ring with the gold, and they're all hands, evolution, four horsemen, whatever way you want to look at it. Have we not been, we've been talking over the last number of weeks, months, whatever it is, of another member going into this group.
Yeah.
And you kind of I find with Gunther at the moment, you know, we don't have Imperium. We kind of have Gunther, but he's kind of out there on his own. And does this lead into something down the line more with Survivor Series or something like that? Because you literally nearly have your Survivor Series War Games team there, you know. And then on the other side, you know, going in, you could have, I don't know, depending on what they're going to do with Cody. Let's see if they turn him heel or not. But you have Drew back now. You have CM Punk. Those two might be able to coexist in this situation. Roman will be back as well. You know, so it'll be interesting to see. But I've noticed over the last few weeks, Gunther's been dressing in black. And I've noticed the boys have been dressing in black as well. And I'm just wondering, is there something in that? Could you visualize? I mean, that'd be some way to send off Saturday night's main event, wouldn't it?
It would probably then give the group some kind of identity. They'd probably move towards an identity.
Well, it just gives it another bit. It gives it another bit of realism and depth, sure. And you know, that kind of nastiness. That kind of are you getting that kind of early Shield off it, that early Nexus kind of feel off it? Then there's that bit of depth in it. You've got four guys in there who are absolutely legit, and Heyman in the corner. And how easy it is if you get whatever you call this faction versus Roman's team with Paul Heyman in their corner against the tribal chief, who he screwed at WrestleMania. So there's a lot of lines getting connected there, you know.
This is what I love about the WWE at the moment. They're planting things that may not even happen, but it's the potential that gets put in your head. And you said something there a few minutes ago about Drew McIntyre getting on with CM Punk again. Drew McIntyre has been putting, before he came back there on the shortest SmackDown of all time there last Saturday, Drew McIntyre has been putting some things on social media that's raised a few eyebrows. You know what I mean? Approaching pay-per-views and all that. So that's not completely out of bounds. If it ends like that, Saturday Night Main Event would be a success for me. That is a whopper ending. Unbelievable.
I was just thinking about it, that might be potentially the way it goes. We still have to have a conversation about Karrion Kross, obviously, as well, who I think if he went into that group with Scarlett, because we've been talking about a female coming into it as well. And if she came into that group on one side and Heyman on the other side, you get that Bobby Heenan, Sherry Martel. If you can get that blend in there, and you've got a place for Karrion Kross, who at the moment fits the group perfectly. Big dude, again, dark kind of character in the black, you know, searching for something to find himself, something to be involved in. Over with the fans is the only problem. But are the fans doing it because they don't want him to leave? And he could always pitch the same thing. I wasn't staying here for you guys. I'm staying here for this.
Didn't Seth say something on Raw? Yeah, he did. He said something on Raw about everybody hates that guy, talking about Karrion Kross. Now that could be a bit of a throwaway comment or something like that, or maybe it's a seed that's planted.
Could be.
But yeah, that would be a whopper ending. I'd be delighted with that ending.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, all right.
Very
but it really legitimizes the faction. Then you know what I mean? Because you've got 4 real hardy bastards in there now who'll steamroll anyone, and those guys then should literally go and take over and spoil Raw on every level. They should be taking guys out left, right, and center that aren't even in storylines, smashing guys up. Really, really doing that number on it. You know what I mean? That like this is our show. Guys who aren't wrestling should take over the commentary desk and everything and all. They should really put it out there. Like
you're talking NWO type things.
I'm talking a real takeover job.
Proper.
I'm talking if there's a kickoff show, you just take the stuff off the people, send them packing, take over the kickoff shows, take over, do it all. Push it out there.
Basically, what Nexus should have done.
Don't put any limit on it. Don't put any limit on it whatsoever. That's what I would do with that group. I'd have Gunther going over and sending Wade Barrett flying or Corey Graves or whatever. I'd leave Michael Cole in there just to give it a bit of stability, but I'd be on his shoulder like the way Nash and Hall used to do it. I'd have a guy either side of him that he is absolutely crapping his jocks. And that's the way I would sell these guys as legit absolute badasses, tearing up the show. I nearly have them tearing up lads in the gorilla position and everything and all. That they absolutely own the show. And this would be insane.
Deadly.
Yeah.
I mean, certainly for one show, just absolutely obliterate it, just to send that message. Similar, I said it a few minutes ago, similar to what the Nexus done. Roman Reigns, I thought about Roman Reigns getting in the way to cash in. I don't think they're going to do that. I think he might inadvertently give it away.
It doesn't make any logical sense when you think that the issue with Rollins really is Punk is the key there, isn't it? I think the issue with Reigns is more Heyman than it is Seth Rollins.
Because he'd more or less expect that from the story. I retract what I said about Goldberg getting a hamstring, getting out of the car. I was hoping. Jesus. There you go.
He did it for Gunther.
Yeah, very
absolutely. Good. Yeah. No, it's just there's just a number of levels to this. I'm actually quite excited for this Saturday night's main event. You know what I mean? So, and it should really. I think this Saturday night's main event will nearly be used as the go home additional show leading into SummerSlam. I think this will lay down the foundations for SummerSlam. So I think it has to be big. The other thing I'd say about it is it's not a huge card. I think it's normally about a 2-hour show, is it?
Yeah, normally.
There's not a huge amount of matches on it and stuff like that. And when you think about Goldberg versus Gunther, is that going to run, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes? So there's going to be plenty of room at the back end of that match to just fucking go haywire. Absolutely mental. Yeah,
it's free. It's free on YouTube at 1 a.m. So like that, I think it's 2 hours max. So we'll see what happens.
What they should do is what they've been doing in recent weeks is they've been having the guys standing in the ring over the guys beat down. I think what they should do is when people hit the ring and all, when the likes of Adam Pearce runs out and Aldis and all, take everyone out. Absolutely leave bodies everywhere. And that's how it goes off the air.
That's exactly. So I think that's brilliant because when they did that with the Nexus, which madly enough loops into something we're going to be talking about later on, when they did that with the Nexus, at that I'll never forget watching that Raw. I was like, what just happened?
Remember he was strangling Justin Roberts with the toy and all. Remember, and he nearly got fired. Remember?
Yeah, Brian Danielson got the sack over that. He then came back a while later, but That's what you want. Unbelievable. And again, 40th Saturday night main event leading into the first ever 2-night SummerSlam. So I think you're onto something there. This has to be massive.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Anyway, let's round it out. Seth Rollins defeating Penta.
Niall, years ago, the WWE used to release DVDs best of 2011. I bought a few of them in the shop, in the WrestleMania shop where I got this T-shirt. If they were still producing those DVDs, on disc one would be this match. It was absolutely incredible. Both men take a bow. Amazing to watch. What I was watching that, I thought about, it took me back to watching Shawn Michaels in the 90s. You know what I mean? Because for me, this is just my opinion and my take on that. Shawn Michaels in the 90s was great. He was fantastic. But I don't think I appreciated him until for years later when I was able to look back, that Vault DVD, all that stuff. And I think that's what we're going to get with Rollins. The work this man can do, and if you think about how long he's been doing it, is still absolutely stellar. And Penta as well, absolutely astonishing. Great stuff by LA Knight there at the end, and a good way to finish the show. Really enjoyed this one. I was delighted at the end of this.
Would we say, Sean, that LA Knight has found his little kind of niche in these things where he doesn't have to be central to it, but can just be that bolt-in kind of spoiler at times?
Yes, definitely. I think we kind of said that, you know, he kind of got lost for a bit, you know. It didn't really look like there was anywhere for him outside of the US title picture. But as you said, he's found his niche and he fits in perfectly. He's the type of man, and I think we said this last week or the week before, you can throw him into any situation and he will be perfect. He really would. And I think he kind of proved it last night and last week. He doesn't have to be in a title picture. So definitely found his niche, and I think it was a great way to end the match last night or Monday night. Sorry.
Yeah, I looked at it the other night and I kind of described him as being, my thoughts straight away were being, you don't have to be the biggest thing on the show, but you can be a big part of the show.
Exactly.
And that's how I kind of looked at it, and I thought it was really cool. And I thought even when he gave that kind of walking promo afterwards and stuff like that, where I told you how it was gonna go and all this kind of thing and all, I mean, he oozes electricity at times and stuff like that and all. But if you can just inject them into certain things where you can use them against guys who've kind of fucked them over in the past and go, I don't forget, even if it's 6 months down the line, 9 months down the line, someone's going to pay the piper eventually, kind of thing, And I just think it's really, really cool because, again, another solid performer, really connects well with the crowd and the audience, but doesn't necessarily have to be the focal point of it. Can be just slightly outside the rim of it, if you like, but still a huge part of the show. And I think even for him as a performer, he would probably think that that's his niche there now, that he can create. He can be that guy, that kind of, not that mid-card guy, but that guy that links the mid-card to the top of the chain. And if he's like the gatekeeper. So, like, if you want to get up into the Rollins and the Punks levels and all that kind of stuff, I'm the guy you come through. You come through me first, and I'm the sounding board to see if you're ready for that. I think it's a cool place for him to be. I think it's awesome. Yep. Ace is telling us 3-0. PSG, game over. Boom, boom. There we go. That leads us in nicely into Saturday night's main event. Folks, give us your predictions for Saturday night's main event on these 3 matches. But before we get into that with you guys, you wanted to have a chat, Brand, didn't you, about what's your story, Randy Orton and Stephanie you were talking about today.
Yeah, 100%. I think we seen a side of Randy Orton during this interview that he never shows. And to his credit, he opened up about his mental health and basically his mental health not being in a great place many years ago through injuries and all of the dark places that he went to. And if you think about it, this is Randy Orton at the height of his career facing all of this stuff. And I think it's really important for somebody like Randy Orton to open up about that, because Randy Orton's one of the toughest guys in the locker room. On top of that as well, he's got this real intensity about him. And I think for him to open up about the mental health as he did, about his own mental health as he did, I think he might have helped a lot of people. Because we all, at the end of the day, look, I love coming on here. I love having the crack. I love talking about wrestling, as do we all. But everybody has mental health issues.
LA Knight mentioned, remember when LA Knight pulled the promo? Don't be scared
Yeah.
to talk about your issues and all. And it was very, very, very cool.
100%. And as somebody who literally grew up with wrestling, who idolized and still loves these guys that goes out and do it, even in Ireland, there's some Irish wrestlers out there that I absolutely idolize, like Jay and Be Cool, etc. To hear somebody like Randy Orton open up about that was very touching, and I think as well, he may have helped a lot of people and opened the door to start conversations. And that's the thing. I think the main message here, and the main message he got across, was he had his wife to ground him, to kind of pull him back down and to refocus him and move forward. He mentioned he got put onto antidepressants and then he came off them. The point is, there's a way out. Reach out. Never be afraid to reach out. Always know that there's somebody there that's A, probably going through what you're going through, B, been through what you're going through, and C, always somebody there willing to help, regardless of what your head is telling you. Never let your head rob you of what you could potentially do in the future. And I think that's the message from Randy Orton. And I just think it was important to bring it up because, look, we're three lads. We have our jobs, we have our everyday lives, but we also have issues like that as well. So I just think it was very important.
And of course, we never think that these guys have issues because these are superstars up on a pedestal. How could they possibly have a problem? They're jet setting around the world. They're making millions of dollars. Life is great. Absolutely. You see them in their mansions with their families and all that kind of stuff. But the mental strain that this business puts on people through travel, through injury, through working through injury, and all that kind of stuff, and everything that's gone on in the past. And we don't have to bring up some of the stuff that's happened in the past through wrestling. You only have to go back and look at Dark Side of the Ring episodes and all that kind of stuff, that there's so many people involved in that if they had had this opportunity, it may not have gone to that dark place. It might have turned out something different,
100%. And just the last thing I'll say on it is that, like, that translates to everybody, your everyday man doing your everyday job. Like, I have a typical 9 to 5 outside of the podcast, obviously. And I know people that are in similar positions. And the point is, first of all, if anybody hasn't seen this interview, go watch it. If you're experiencing mental health issues, reach out, don't be afraid, and certainly watch this. I think it will help you. So appreciate you bringing that up, Niall. I think it's a very important thing that often can be overlooked in today's world.
And it's interesting, Sean, as well. I mean, if you look at the graphic there, on one side, you're talking about a multi-billionaire woman there married to Triple H, Vince McMahon's daughter. So what issues could she ever have? You know what I mean? And on the other side, you've got Randy Orton, second, third generation, whatever it is, multi-billionaire, set for life, probably a new era Mount Rushmore, I would think, in terms 100%. Of the career he's had and everything stuff. We know that he was kind of off the rails in the early 2000s up till a certain point and stuff like that. Then got settled down, found family life, wife, kids, all that kind of stuff, and kind of did a bit of growing up and stuff like that. But these two people having a deep conversation about the struggles and all that kind of stuff and all, and people forget that because sometimes people just look at them and go, here's these superstars, private jets, motorhomes, RVs, all this kind of stuff. They don't forget the baggage that goes with that at times, So, just an interesting one. So we'll go back into Saturday night's main event now. Any predictions, lads? We spoke obviously about Goldberg and Gunther, and we all have different ideas on that. LA Knight, Seth Rollins. Is this going to be a straight up match, or is this going to be empty the locker room, the black hoods, the whole lot? And then down the bottom, Randy versus Drew McIntyre. Drew McIntyre back in there and stuff like that. Good to see Drew back at it at that level as well, So I'm really looking forward to Randy and Drew. Any thoughts, boys, on the other two matches?
What do you think, Sean?
Obviously great to see Drew McIntyre back. I for one definitely missed him, and it's actually quite funny he returned on Friday because a couple of days prior I'd actually thought about him and I was wondering when he'd be coming back. So God always has a plan, so I guess it was good timing. Um, I'm excited for this match, and I don't know who the heck to pick. Um, think I'm gonna go with Randy on this one though. I feel like since he didn't win the King of the Ring tournament, we got to get him back on a bit of a winning streak. So got to go with Randy for this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Brent?
I look at it a bit different, Sean. For me, I think Drew McIntyre to win. I don't know how he's going to win, but he's going to win. Maybe there's shenanigans, maybe there's not. But I think something happens. And Drew McIntyre wins. And I think this is just another step forward to Randy Orton's eventual heel turn as he moves towards Cody. That's what I think is going to happen. I don't think they're going to turn Cody heel. I think they did this for years with John Cena. Will they, won't they? Will they, won't they? I think it's too early to do it on Cody. And I think the best bet you have with Cody versus Randy, which is inevitable, is bad guy Randy, good guy Cody. And then later on, maybe before Randy leaves, because I think Randy has about 5 years left, maybe they do the reverse, and then Randy puts him over on the way out. Something along the lines of that. But my pick for this is Drew McIntyre for the reasons I just said.
Interesting. And I presume we're going with Seth. Are we across the board on the other one? I would assume so. One way or another. One way or another.
I think Shet. Who's Shet? I don't know. I think
Seth's brother.
I think Seth's winning. Obviously. I think the shenanigans there. Maybe I don't. Maybe he doesn't put him over cleanly. But look, I think this is a shoe win. But I don't think it's going to be the fact that he's winning. It's going to be how he wins, and that's either way. I think we're in for a treat.
Interesting. Also, we should mention that our thoughts go out to obviously Seth and Becky as well, whose house was robbed and raided on Monday night. And I'm sure a lot of personal stuff was robbed as well that can't be replaced and stuff like that as well. So thinking about both of them as well, obviously. We have a lot to get through, lads. We still got plenty to do here, and the clock is ticking. So let's get into it. Evolution, guys. Give me your quick predictions for Evolution. We won't dwell on it too long. But give me your predictions for it. Sean?
I would like to. Sorry, Sean. You fire away. I didn't mean to jump in there.
You're all right. I just want to say I'm so excited for this pay-per-view. I loved the first Evolution pay-per-view.
Yes.
And I'm even more excited that we have a second one. And hopefully this can be a yearly thing. Or every 2 or 3 years, just a nice little treat. My predictions. Feel like I got to go with Io Sky to retain. I can't see Rhea getting the title just yet. I'm kind of hoping after this match to take her out the world title picture just for a while. It'll be nice to see Io have a different challenger, or someone who isn't Rhea Ripley in the title picture would be nice for a change. Tiffany versus Trish Stratus. Who doesn't love Trish Stratus? As much as I love this woman, still got to go with Tiffy time to retain. Jordan Grace versus JC Jane. It is great that they're including the NXT women once again. I think the NXT women's roster is stacked. It's really good roster. Dare I say better than AEW's roster. We'll get into that another time maybe. Gotta go with Jordan Grace to take up the win, and that will lead to her match at Slammiversary, I think, in TNA. So yeah, Jordan for the win. Jade Cargill versus Naomi. Gotta go with Jade. I mean, I love Jade Cargill. We've talked about this last week. She's got that star power. Is she the best? No. Is she a bit rusty? Possibly. But nonetheless, I love Jade Cargill, so gotta go for Jade. The women's tag team match. Gotta go with the Judgment Day to retain. Coming in at a close second is probably Alexa and Charlotte. for the women's Intercontinental title, I got to go with Bailey picking up the win. I know. How dare I go for someone that's not Irish? I should be ashamed of myself. No need to tell me. But yes, I think I will go for Bailey. And then, of course, for the Battle Royal, as much as I love Nikki Bella to win,
Oh,
Brent, don't get
jeez.
triggered. Don't get triggered. Don't get
Well,
triggered.
laptop will go out the window.
We'll have a talk later. I got to go with Stephanie Becker. I know she's
Yeah.
going to be in the match. She is the right choice. So yeah, those are my predictions.
Bren?
Yeah, I'll just do it real quick. I think Stephanie's winning the Battle Royale. I'm going to go with Bailey as well. Although I'm kind of between Bailey and Becky, but for the sake of prediction, I'll just go with Bailey. I'd love to see the Kabuki Warriors win the tag belts after seeing them just come back. That would be cool. However, I think I have to agree with Sean. It's going to be Judgment Day. Again, I'm going to agree with Sean, and I'm going to say Jade Cargill for the simple reason is Naomi has the briefcase. She's eventually going to cash it in, and she's going to win. I've been following Jordan Grace for a long time. I'd love to see Jordan win this. Tiff is beating Trish. I think that's a foregone conclusion, I think. But at the same time, again, it's what happens after that match that I think is going to be important. And maybe that's the cash in. I don't know. Maybe Naomi cashes in then. And here's where I'll disagree with Sean. I think put the belt back on Rhea. Just put the belt back on her. I love Io Sky, but there's an aura about Rhea. And I think it could be developed without the belt. I get that 100%. Give her the belt and put some continue the prestige of the belt. They've been doing good with it so far, but those are my predictions. That's what I think anyway. What say you, Niall?
Yeah, I'm very like you guys in most of what you said. I think this is a big shot for Rhea to win the belt. I think if she was to lose here, you're creating a history of losing, aren't you, really, against Io? Which puts you in a difficult position. I think for Rhea, has kind of found herself in a kind of no man's land over the last number of months and stuff like that, where she was this mega star. And then it all came down a little bit. And then it became a little bit of part of the group. And then I think she probably needs the belt back on her again to stamp her authority on the show, I think. So from that point of view, yeah. I think you're right. I think pending on when the Cargill-Naomi match is in the card, if it's early on, you could be staring down the barrel of a cash-in. But it'll certainly be interesting as well. I looked at Trish Stratus the other night as well. She doesn't seem to look like a girl who's coming in just to fill in for a night here and there. She looks like she's been at it big time. She's in phenomenal shape. She hasn't dropped a beat. She looks the part. The other thing I was kind of thinking here is, we don't have much involvement here from Charlotte Flair, and I know she's been talking about it. Is Charlotte Flair potentially the one that comes in? Could she cost Tiff the belt? Does the belt go to Trish, and then do we get Trish Charlotte at SummerSlam? I don't know. I just think there needs to be. I think for this Evolution pay-per-view to find its place, and if they want to do it as a yearly thing, because they have all the talent in the world, but I think we have to be able to turn around come say November and December and go, remember that moment at Evolution. It has to stick out as part of one of the big items in the year to kind of deliver it back in there again, maybe next year or the year after or whatever it is. So I think a lot has to happen on this. And I think you have to get a lot of shock stuff as well. Maybe Naomi's the one that hands Cargill the loss. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. It'll be interesting to see how that style mixes as well, because you're talking about two big girls in there that could get a little bit clunky. We shall see. Really looking forward to Jordane's match, of course. The NXT one. That looks like it could be an absolute show stealer. And obviously the three-way with Lyra, Becky, and Bailey, I'm really looking forward to. Definitely, obviously we want Lyra to do very well, but I just think they need to do something now with Bailey. They need to create something kind of meaningful and meaty and juicy that people can dig their hands into, if you like, and get involved and get behind it and stuff like that. And I think it's probably time for Bailey to step out of the Kabuki Warriors or whatever it is, Damage Control or whatever it is, and be back Bailey again. But obviously with a bit of gold, and obviously her hold that Intercontinental strap on now would be important to her as well, because it's obviously a new title in there that she hasn't held. So that would be really important as well. So I'm looking forward to it. It should be a good pay-per-view. I know Sean said in the chat there that the ticket sales are low and stuff like that, but this is something that they have to build on, and it's something that they have to develop over time before it starts really dragging in the numbers. I wouldn't be looking at this in terms of, I wouldn't be judging it based on the ticket sales. This is as good a women's card as you'll see anywhere. And I think the quality is going to shine through as well. Really looking forward to some really good performers on this. So yeah, look forward to it. That's for sure. Yeah,
the women deserve it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And the problem is, like if you're not going to do something like this, what do you do? What do you do with all this talent? Because now 2 hours Raw, 2 hours SmackDown. It's not an awful lot of space for these girls to show what they could do, and to be given the time that they need. There we go. That's Sean WC. Not a chance she can last more than 3 minutes in a match and doesn't give herself a concussion before getting to the ring. Aki said, yeah, I kind of get it, because she just appears out of nowhere, but the fans still like her. She's still in good shape and can still work really well and isn't. There we go. Put the belt back on Rhea. Goodness gracious me. There we go. Can't wait for Congo Ars to cash in. There we go. Jesus.
How we get away
hopefully
with
the
this?
hopefully the card over delivers. I don't think it's a blip on anyone's radar. Proper throw stuff at the wall until it sticks and hope for the best build. Yeah, I think the problem is, I think there's so much wrestling this weekend as well. Something's obviously going to get lost in the mix. But I think maybe after the weekend, when we're back on next week, I think we might be looking at this show as maybe one of our highlights of the weekend as well, hopefully. Could you have this Evolution pay-per-view as a permanent thing around SummerSlam time? Again, I think in order to do this, they should break away a little bit and not be a part of someone's time. Because again, I think if you put it around the SummerSlam time, SummerSlam being 2 nights now, such a big event, the biggest party of the summer and all, I think this will get lost in it. So I think they need to find it, because it was Saturday night's main event. Maybe they were looking at it. There's a big NXT show as well. We haven't even spoken about, but it's mad. And obviously All In is there as well. So it will be interesting. Let's go take a look at All In then. I'm going to bring it up here now. There we go. What's our thinking on this, lads?
I'll fly through it real quick. I'll just do the whole thing because I know we're pushed for time. I'd like to see Kyle Fletcher be Adam Cole. Adam Cole's very lackluster to me. Maybe it's just me, and maybe he's one of the wrestlers that should have been a lot bigger. But we'll touch on that in a few minutes. Not a big fan of the Young Bucks. Hope the Young Bucks lose. They don't deserve to be where they are today, in my opinion. I'd like to see Okada beat Omega. It would be. I'm not too excited about it. I don't know what it is. I'm just not too excited about it. But I'd like to see Okada win.
If we get the right Kenny Omega, we could get a wrestling clinic here.
I hope so.
If we don't get the fuckery Kenny Omega and we get the more mature wrestling Kenny Omega, I think this could be a stellar match.
Yeah, look, Kenny Omega can steal the show, but I'm not too. I don't know what it is. I'm just not too pushed on this match this time anyway.
Yeah.
The AEW Tag Team Championships. There. Again, I'm not too pushed on it. It's just what AEW does. You know what? I would love to see. To be honest, I don't know either way. That's just being honest. I don't really care. I'm a big Christian Cage guy, but I don't really mind either way. So I know this is disappointing, but it'd be nice to see Speedball get a bit of a victory. That would be cool. Now I'll go straight into the women's match. I think Sasha Banks is going to win, or Mercedes Moné, or whatever she is this week. I actually think she's going to win. I don't want to see that. I think Tony Storm should definitely retain her. She's the highlight. She's the highlight. One of the highlights of AEW to me. And then the Texas Death Match. I was a big Moxley fan. I think AEW, like they do with most ex-WWEs, they kind of and it's the wrestler's fault as well. They go in a direction where they're just uninteresting. And I was a big Mox fan back in the day. Not a big Adam Page guy either. I sound pretty negative regarding this, but I'm not a big Adam Page guy. Again, I just think he got stale really, really quick. However, I'm going to call it. I think not Alan. His name's not Alan. Adam Page is winning this. He's beaten Moxley, and he's taking the belt. It's about time for that. And the Death Riders need to go. They need to go, in my opinion. So look, that's real quick. Just considering the time. The tag team match is the only kind of like lackluster there thing for me as well. But nothing else too exciting. That's what I think anyway. What are you thinking,
Sean?
Yeah, I have to say I kind of agree with you on most of it. The TNT title match, I feel like I gotta go for Kyle Fletcher. Once Adam Cole was brought in, he was made to be what kind of every ex-WWE person that comes over to AEW is, and that's made to be a big star for a while and then just kind of shoved in the background. So I feel like
Up the ball.
that's what they have done with Adam Cole, and it's kind of killed his momentum. So I think I'll go for Kyle. Tag team match. Yeah. Got to go with Will Ospreay and Swerve. I have absolutely zero interest in the Young Bucks. I definitely agree with you. Bren, I cannot stand them. They don't deserve to be where they are. Decent wrestlers, but completely uninteresting. The the, the World
Hurt
Tag
Syndicate?
Team. I gotta go with the Hurt Syndicate. Yeah. I feel like Speedball is everywhere. There was one point on my social media, he was everywhere I looked. Kind of put me off him. Great wrestler, but still got to go with the Hurt Syndicate on this one. Got to agree with you. Got to go with Okada. If we get the right Kenny Omega, possibly yes. Beautiful looking title, but I know for a fact in a few weeks we will not give a shit about it. So doesn't really matter who wins the match. Women's World Championship match, got to go with my CEO, Mercedes
Oh
Moné.
my god!
Love her, every bit of her. Um, Timeless Tony Storm is an absolute star. She is the highlight of the women's division, as well as Mercedes Moné. But I've got to go with Mercedes. I've loved her since her NXT days, so got to stick with her. Once a Mercedes fan, always a Mercedes fan. Um, and then for the world title match, I feel like the obvious choice, Hangman Adam Page. Debt Riders, as you said, have to go. John Moxley and the Debt Riders put the death in the death of AEW. And that is one thing I know for a fact. When you haven't seen the world title for 9, 10 months now, it's in a briefcase. It's an absolute joke. Hangman for the win, definitely. Get rid of the Debt Riders. Get rid of John Moxley for all I care. I love that man, but the past year, 2 years, completely uninteresting. Every time I see him and the Debt Riders on my TV, get them the hell off. Toilet break. Absolute toilet break. So Hangman for the win.
Bring back
Yeah.
Ambrose.
Yes, bring back Ambrose. Definitely.
Fair.
I tend to agree with you lads on most of it. The only one, as I said, I agree with Bren on this. I think for Mercedes Moné to beat Tony Storm, I think would be an absolute travesty. And not because I just think Tony Storm, I think, is phenomenal, really. I think the depth of her character, I think the effort that's put in, I think with Mercedes Monet, and I've said it already, we're not seeing enough of it really. She's not giving us enough of it. And I think the CEO character is just the easiest, simplest cop-out character that you could actually give her. And I was talking about this today, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it leading into it. As you can see there, they're talking about creative control. And according to Tony Khan, he was saying that Mercedes Monet does not have creative control in AEW. And that's not the case. And they were kind of trying to justify all the gold and the decisions and stuff like that. But if the decision this Saturday is that she goes over on Tony Storm, well, then we know the answer to this and we haven't been told the truth. Because Tony Storm is by far so better than Mercedes Monet in every aspect of the business. And I think it would be a travesty. And I think what it does is, I think if Tony Storm picks up the win, I think it propels her into that kind of superstardom that AEW are looking for from a performer. I think if Mercedes Monet wins this, I think it just shits on the federation as a whole, to be honest. And I think it just looks really, really bad and sends the wrong narrative. That's how I would feel about it. Totally agree with John Moxley. I think it's about time that leash has been taken off the promotion by him. And that, Hangman seems to be the last guy in a list of guys. So who have you really got left that can go and challenge him and potentially win the belt if Hangman can't get it done? So I really do think it's Hangman's time. I think Kenny's going to pick up the win against Okada. I think you're right on Kyle Fletcher. The Bucks is an interesting one, isn't it? Because we've all been fans of the Bucks in the past. And I'm just not sure what they need to do. In terms of positioning, I don't think they're positioning themselves by using their politicking. Otherwise, they'd probably be in the tag match. I think they're finding that kind of level there now. And I'm not sure. This could be a really interesting match just because of the blend and the mix of it. So it could be interesting. But I get it. I know what you're saying about the Bucks, and a lot of people are saying it and stuff like that. But with Ospreay in there, and they should, I swear, if they should pull a good match there. It should be. So we'll see what happens. But it looks like a real good card. I'm really looking forward to that tag team, the title match as well. I do think the Syndicate will keep it just because of the numbers. Always look forward to seeing Speedball as always, and Christian just stands head and shoulders. I look at Christian's promos at least 2 to 3 times a week anyway, still, you know what I mean? And, and I still say that the outstanding moment in AEW that year was when he whispered in Edge's ear, "Go fuck yourself." It was the moment, you know what I mean? And how simple is that? The simple things are always the best, It'd be interesting to see what comes out of the Casino Gauntlet matches as well. They're normally kind of messy, so I'm not too sure what's going to come out of them. I didn't delve down into it too deep, but looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good card. I expect it to deliver. A lot of talent on it and stuff like that, and I'm sure there's other matches we haven't included here because normally these are big events. So we shall see. So next week reviewing this is going to be interesting, that's for sure. How do you feel about this Mercedes man, especially you, Sean? Creative control. I get the feeling she stinks of
it. I feel like she's telling a bunch of lies, It would explain a bit in why she has all the titles, but yeah, I can see her having creative control over the division and making all these major decisions, and the decisions that are supposed to be made for the better of the business and what's best for business. I can't see her being the type of person to make those decisions. Obviously, Tony said he has the final say in everything, obviously, for obvious reasons. But yeah, I just can't see her having creative control and doing what needs to be done for the better of the company. I could see her maybe looking out, as bad as it sounds, looking out more for her own benefit than the rosters.
Yeah. Should be interesting though.
I would say that Tony is we've seen Tony as a fan. He's a wrestling fan, right? And like we've seen in recent weeks, we all have different favorites as an example, right? And Tony is a fan of that kind of style of wrestling, such that, like, for example, he would have loved Sasha Banks in WWE, whereas I wasn't a big fan. If I had a wrestling company, I'm not sure I'd be able to run that company efficiently, because I think I would. So to me, it wouldn't be creative control, more like creative influence. They'd have influence over me. I'd push the guys that I'm a fan of. I wouldn't necessarily do what's best for business. I don't think I would. I don't think I'd have it in me to do it. I'd put out there what I want to see every week. And what I like to see is, I like to see a good technical wrestling match, whereas other people like to see the acrobatics that the likes of the Young Bucks do. As an example, and there's nothing wrong with that, as we've discussed before about the Wyatt Six, wrestling's a circus. But for me, I think what we see with Tony is maybe what he's saying is the truth. But I think he may be influenced heavily by what he's into as a wrestling fan. As an example, if I was in control of the company now, or if I was in control of the company years ago when Cena was getting the world title, I would have put all the titles on him at the same time, probably, as an extreme example. That's just what I think on that. I think he's just influenced by his fandom more than anything else. And do wrestlers take advantage of it? 100%, absolutely. So is that creative control? Yeah, probably. I agree with Niall. She stinks of it.
We shall see. We'll know Saturday night anyway. This was an interesting one for MJF as well, guys. I don't know if you caught this. He was talking about in terms of WWE recognizing AEW as competition. And he was kind of making the point, well, you know the way WWE go, oh, we don't recognize that and all that kind of stuff. But yet they're continually running up against it at times. You know, constantly putting matches on and our shows on at times when there's AEW shows on and stuff like that. So he was kind of making the point. He says it's a smart business practice. I give jolly old Saint Nick and Trips a whole lot of credit and all, you know. So he was making the point that, look, if you didn't recognize the competition, why would you be running shows head to head with us? It's a fair point. I think it's a good point from MJF as well. So
fair point,
an interesting one. One that you guys might have liked. I don't know if you caught this. Have you watched this one yet, Heads of State?
It's on me to-do list. I can't bloody wait. I have it in my favorites already. Getting ready.
Do you know what? It's so hokey. It's good. That's the only way I can describe it. Sean, have you watched it yet?
No, I haven't even heard of it.
It's on Amazon Prime. But Idris Elba there, who's in it as well, is very, very good. But Cena is so like, he's like he's kind of like goofy Cena, if you like, in it, but still really, really good and enjoyable. It's like one of those action movies that's kind of like, it's nearly like, you know, like Naked Gun or something like that. It's kind of like that, so it's kind of fun. Big up. How are we this evening? Give us your predictions as well if you like, folks, for all in as well. But I watched this at the weekend, and I have to say, I sat down and really enjoyed it. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it that much, but Cena just, you know, when Cena's nearly, it feels like Cena's nearly working the cast and the director nearly, you know. Gonna say this, JCW started a Monday Night War last Monday with WWE. There you go. There you go. Yeah, so check it out. But he'll just give us his Mount Rushmore. This is his Mount Rushmore that he picked out. So he has Hogan, Austin, Cena, and Rock. Not surprised he picks most of the Hollywood guys, if you like.
Tell me you haven't watched wrestling in 20 years without telling me you haven't watched wrestling in 20 years. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. It's just naming the big guys. But look, that is a Mount Rushmore. You wouldn't say no to any of those names. Hogan's the foundation. Steve Austin's one of the biggest stars of all time. Cena is he's a man of himself, and The Rock is The Rock. Yeah, fair play to him.
Yeah, no, but it was. You'll enjoy. Watch the movie. It's very good. You tell me about it next week on the show. But it's hokey as hell. Like, but it's so funny. So funny. I just sat back and enjoyed it. All I could think of was like kind of Leslie Nielsen's Naked Gun or something like that. That's how it felt to me. Or like, you know, one of the old, you know, that old cheesy comedic thing, you know, like, but in the middle of it, of course, there's just action everywhere. There's explosions going off. There's car chases. It's like It's like as if they did a comedy version of Fast and Furious or something, but it's good. It's well worth a watch. Well worth a watch, I have to say.
We know, speaking of the Naked Gun, we know Cody is in the new Naked Gun. And as well, if you haven't seen Peacemaker, season 2 is out in August. John Cena and Peacemaker is golden. If you haven't seen it, check it out. And I think, it would be interesting, maybe in a future show, if we talk about wrestlers and films and kind of like do a bit of a ranking there. But I'll talk to you during the week about that.
Absolutely. So last week, your top 10 sellers, Jey Uso was top of the pile. 4 letters, 1 word. Stop. There we go. So he was number 1. I think this week, as far as I know, the predicted number 1 is actually Karrion Kross. So it should be interesting up against some heavy hitters. So we'll keep that going when we find out about it and stuff like that. No,
see, Ron Cena is still in there. The Ron Cena t-shirt. So is that something that could be, say, bought in a shop?
Oh yeah, they absolutely. They flushed it back out there. They flushed it back out there when he came back. Sure, they'd a half a warehouse of it. They couldn't sit on it,
Lovely stuff.
So there we go. Just remember, folks, in the chat as well, we do this is what we were asking you earlier. If you could think of a wrestler that you thought would be huge and make it big, not necessarily win a world title. I know we got Rick Rude earlier, Mr. Perfect off Acers. We're not necessarily looking for people who we think should have been world champion. We're thinking of people who you thought would have become a big star, but didn't make it, just basically failed. Had it all, but didn't make it, basically. Lads, give us your thoughts. Have you got anyone for me?
Yeah, we have a couple. Jeff Hardy, which is a bit of a mad one, but he should be so much bigger now. There's no denying it. Wade Barrett came to mind. Titus O'Neil, and one that came to mind is, because we touched on it last week, was Dusty Rhodes in the WWF. Now, I want to point out as well, when I thought about some of these names, one of the things that came to mind was it wasn't necessarily the wrestler's fault that they weren't bigger in some cases. So if you think of, like, say, Shelton Benjamin, for example, who should have been world champion, say, 5 times over, not necessarily his fault. Maybe he was a bit too easy going, because Cody said something interesting on a podcast with Kevin Owens, I think, or where it's like the guys that say yes to everything, whereas he's kind of like, well, maybe this isn't for me. So when I thought of some of these wrestlers, and I think it's interesting that Mr. Perfect was up there as well, I think it's good to think about it's not necessarily the wrestler's fault. So for me, it's Wade Barrett, Shelton Benjamin, Mr. Kennedy, Jeff Hardy, and Dusty Rhodes. And to name a few, I have a list of 20 here. I won't go through them all for time's sake. Taker destroying his podcast now, having his wife on it. He's not wrong.
Yeah, and they weren't best pleased on that episode of LFG either. Booker with her getting the first pick as well, going, how come she's getting the first pick and all? And Taker goes, what's wrong with you, Booker? The bully way. What's your problem, Booker? Yeah, there we go. Keith's thinking Dolph Ziggler. For me, he was the modern day HBK in the ring.
Great show.
Good shout. Doing great things out there in TNA and on the indie scene, though. Sean, anything come to mind?
I'm going to go a bit more modern here, recent years. And first 2 people that came to mind was Carmelo Hayes and Shinsuke Nakamura. I feel like Carmelo Hayes was a big star in NXT, NXT champion. He combined the Cruiserweight title and the North American title. And as soon as he got up to the roster, flatline. And then Shinsuke Nakamura, he's had his few moments from winning the Intercontinental title, the United States title. But you look at it overall, WWE did quite drop the ball with him. Had the potential to be a world champion, and WWE just kind of thought, nah, we'll keep you in the background. You're good, but from our point of view, from our eyes, you're possibly mid-card at best. So that's what
Shinsuke's a great show, Sean.
Really good.
Show, actually. Yeah, really good show. I came up with 3, and I kind of wanted to space them out. So my first one was Chris Masters, because I like Chris. I'd be reasonably friendly with Chris at the WrestleCons and stuff like that, from having him in the shop and all. But he's a guy who I thought they could have pushed to the moon. I was actually because that Ozzy Osbourne thing was on at the weekend. I went back and I looked at the promo. Remember when he came out and he was doing the peck popping with Ozzy Osbourne to the music?
Yes.
Remember Sharon was there and all, wasn't it? Yeah, it was so cool. And Ozzy, what did Ozzy say? Get that man a bra. It was so cool.
Quality.
Great times, and I look back on it, I thought it was hilarious. Keith's in with a great shout as well. Mason Ryan. Yeah, Batista 2.0. Absolutely.
He went off the Cirque de la Say, I think, yeah. But yeah, great show.
Was also a goalkeeper, wasn't he?
Was he?
He was a goalkeeper in football, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely, as far as I know, yeah. So the other one I came up with was Maven, obviously, which is the obvious one. I mean, Maven has to be I thought Maven could have been a huge superstar back then, and he just fell off a cliff. And the other one that came to mind as well was at a time where kind of the Undertaker's gig was winding down. There was a guy in there, Kevin Thorne, who was doing a Mordecai gimmick, if you remember. And I thought that Mordecai gimmick could have done amazing things. And they fucking blew it. They just messed it up. And I think even Kevin Thorne himself, even in that kind of vampire gimmick at a time where, Twilight and the Lost Boys and all this vampire stuff was going on and stuff like that, he could have been a huge star. He was in there, remember, with Shelly Martinez at the side, and they were quite the double act. So they were the three that kind of came to mind.
What about Zack Ryder? Now, I know he's doing his thing in the Indies, Matt Cardona, but I actually think Zack Ryder is somebody who should have been much bigger. And I'm not saying it was necessarily his fault. It's one of these things where it was creative's fault over anything else. But I think Zack Ryder should have been massive. What do you think?
Do you know what I think the issue was? I think if Zack Ryder at the time had took the business as serious as Matt Cardona takes the business, I think he would be still there and be a huge star.
Yeah. I
often felt that Zack Ryder felt like at the time he had hit the jackpot. And I'm talking a bit like Hogan here and Terry Bollea now, I felt like Zack Ryder in WWE got there, felt like he had hit the jackpot, and kind of was a bit blown away by the whole thing. Whereas I think if you think of Matt Cardona now, who's so in tune with the business side of the business and how important all that is and all the other stuff he does, that's why he's such a success out there on the indie scene. I think if that Matt Cardona was brought to that Zack Ryder character in a more serious kind of way about the business, not in a kind of hokey jokey kind of way about the business, I think Zack Ryder would be like if Matt Cardona went into WWE, he'd be big.
So that was my next question to you both actually. If Matt Cardona comes back to the WWE, if it's Matt Cardona, Zack Ryder, Nathan Jones, I have that name down. But if he comes back, I personally think it's too late for him. I think he gets the initial pop. I think, first couple of weeks is really, really good. But I think he kind of gets lost in the shuffle after a while. That's just my opinion. Are you saying he comes back and then becomes a big star? Or a bigger star? Or where he could have been? I
think he has to come back and make himself not get lost in the shuffle.
Yeah.
That's what I think. And I think a lot of that times where people talk about being lost in the shuffle and creative has nothing for me and all that, that's down to those guys and girls. They need to sort that. You need to be knocking on doors. You need to be showing them how serious you are about what you want to do here. Not be that guy that's happy to pick up a paycheck, sit in catering, and be the fill-in in case someone gets injured or a flight gets cancelled or something like that. You need to be at the forefront of it. I think when you look at Matt Cardona now and how he talks about the business, I think he's very, very serious about how this business works now. And I think if that Matt Cardona goes into WWE, you would see him very quickly find himself in the US belt or the IC belt and then eventually stepping up. Like, for instance, a Matt Cardona in Rollins' group right now wouldn't be a loss. are out of place.
Good. Yeah.
If you get that Matt Cardona, you know that. I think what happens is I think he still likes at times that whole jokey element of it, you know, when he does the Undertaker thing and the Macho Man thing and stuff like that as well. And that's all very cool when you're out on the indie scene and you're looking for that kind of instant gratification pop kind of thing. That's a moment there for people maybe at a show and stuff like that. But if you're going into WWE, there's a huge seriousness to this business now.
Sure.
In terms of how you approach it and stuff like that. And that's why I think sometimes, even we spoke about Drew McIntyre earlier, I think Drew McIntyre sometimes isn't as serious enough as he needs to be about him and his positioning in the business. And I think this is where we get the lost and the shuffle kind of thing. That's just my thoughts on it.
I think if we would have got the Matt Cardona that we have as Zack Ryder after he won the Intercontinental title at WrestleMania, I think they would have had all the perfect ingredients to push that man to the moon. If we got Matt Cardona after WrestleMania, winning the Intercontinental title with the Intercontinental title, I think they could have pushed him to the moon.
Yeah,
that's
a
just
good
my
shout.
opinion.
And I think we're actually going to get to see that. I think he comes back in the next 6 months. I think so anyway. So we'll see what happens, and we'll be talking about it this time next year. I hope so anyway. Because look, it's a wrestling business. You hope the best for these people. All we have is opinions.
Yeah. The issue would be, you know, does frustration kick in or whatever it is. Right. Let's take a little bit of history and some interesting birthdays. The history this week is interesting because this week is where we've seen some of the best of WCW and some of the worst of WCW. So it's interesting. There's your dynamic. So stick with me on that. But some interesting stuff. So, of course, 1996, WCW Bash at the Beach was held at the Ocean Center. And, of course, this is where the NWO, Hogan turns heel, and if the Mean Gene promo on the ring getting destroyed and the whole thing. So keep that in your mind, right? One of the greatest moments in wrestling history, right? Keep that in your mind. 1985, the first ever WWF King of the Ring took place in the Sullivan Stadium in Foxborough, Massachusetts, in front of 23,000 fans. The original Rock, the Don Morocco, defeated the Iron Sheik in the final of the tournament to be crowned the King of the Ring. 2013, the Wyatt family, Bray Wyatt, Luke Harper, and Eric Rowan made their WWE main roster debut by attacking Kane on Raw. Wyatt family, unbelievable when they came in first. 1985, one of my favorite tag teams of all time, the Rock and Roll Express, Ricky Morton and Robbie Gibson, baby, won their first NWA World Tag Team Championships with a win over Ivan Koloff and Crusher Khrushchev in Shelby, North Carolina. Now, this is where it takes a turn. Remember the first one? Hogan turning heel, Bash the Beach, 1996. This is 2000. WCW's Bash at the Beach pay-per-view took place again at the Ocean Center in Daytona Beach. The show is most famous for the chain of events that led to Hogan winning the belt, going into business for himself with Bischoff, Rusev coming out and cutting that crazy promo, all that kind of stuff that led to litigation and all that kind of stuff. So there you go. We've seen the best and the worst of WCW in the same week at the same pay-per-view within history. So there you go. 1987, one of my all-time favorites, the Ultimate Warrior, then known as the Dingo Warrior, made his WWF television debut with a win over Frenchie Martin, no doubt, at a WWF Wrestling Challenge taping. Frenchie Martin, eh?
I didn't know that piece of history, and that's not why I'm wearing this, by the way. I'm not wearing this. I genuinely didn't know that the Dingo Warrior, so that's brilliant.
There you go.
Obviously, I've got the thing. There you are.
Yeah, let's go. Romy's in. Big up, Romy. Good to see you, my man. Bash at the Beach, where Rusev called Hogan a bald son of a bitch. Loved it. And Rusev and Bischoff and Hogan didn't even know what was happening because remember they were flying back, and when they got off the plane, then all the messages came through. There was murder over it. I think it was part of a Dark Side of the Ring or something like that. So it was pretty cool. 2005, in one of the most memorable Raw segments of the period, the recently released Matt Hardy made a surprise return to Raw to attack Edge, the on-off affair with Lita, the girlfriend. Remember the radio show, the phone in, attacked Edge, became an on-screen then storyline. Absolutely.
He brought
crazy.
up Ring of Honor and all that.
Right. Brought up everything. 2009, former WWE champion Brock Lesnar headlined UFC's landmark UFC 100 pay-per-view in Las Vegas. He faced off against Frank Mir to unify the interim and regular versions of the heavyweight championship, and of course defeated Frank Mir. And UFC 100, I think, stands today as one of the biggest pay-per-views in UFC history. 2013, WWE opened its much-lauded WWE Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, and of course, the rest is history. I think a lot of people at the time were a little bit skeptical about it, but it's shown that it was one of their best decisions that they ever made. And of course, 1995, Jack Tunney, a man I'd know well in the WWF suit jacket, of course, like Vince and like Mean Gene Okerlund. The long-time on-screen president of WWF was released from the company. Jack Tunney, the president, remember?
What a time.
Very good. So some notable birthdays. We have some notable birthdays. Back in again, Romy. Matt Hardy versus Edge made me cringe so much. Edge and Lita on Raw, though, wasn't too bad. Just saying. Shelton Benjamin, 1975. Still unbelievable. What a wrestler Shelton Benjamin is. 1960, Mark Miro. 1959, Diesel himself, Kevin Nash, celebrates his birthday this week. Sami Zayn, 1984. See, I'm not all bad. I kept it in there. Don't worry, Sammy. 1980, Tyson Kidd. 1977, Brock Lesnar. And 1954, the natural Butch Reed. And we rounded out with 1974, the Hurricane himself, Shane Helms.
What a man.
Legend.
No birthdays. Now, as Stevie Richards said, Hogan told him at TNA, I need $2 million to live. Fella isn't asking for much. Yeah, absolutely.
Actually, Stevie Richards is another guy that should have been bigger, in my opinion. Just whilst running, and I know we're just about to wrap up, but just I see Remy on the thing. The last time I seen Remy in the chat was Monday's show, the football show. I know we don't normally mention it, but that interview with Brian McClure. If there's any Manchester United fans or general football fans out there,
Celtic,
or Celtic, watch Brian McClure on the Upper Tier interview. It's very good. His dry sense of humor is excellent, and a great little history lesson. So that's the last time I seen Remy. That's just reminded me of a great show. So well done on that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Cheers, appreciate that. So check it out. It's all up there. It's doing well and stuff like that. This is Pro Wrestling Weekly. This has been your midweek weekly dose that we bring you as a panel. Sean's back with us next week, I believe. Sean O'Rourke is going to do a video package for the homecoming and all this kind of thing. I might have to do an interesting thumbnail.
I'll try. No promises.
The biggest return in podcast history. That's what I did on as.
Yeah. He's looking for one of those like WrestleMania entrances from Orlando, is it? It's like you could fly a plane off and nearly it's that long.
He asked us to get Limp Bizkit involved for the video package.
I'm already
a lot of demands.
That's it.
We might get a bit of Fiend in the background. Just
Jesus Christ! I thought we went a week without mentioning that. I won't even say Jesus.
We nearly went to 40. We
were close.
Yeah, absolutely. So until next time, folks, if you could subscribe, share, hit the bell notification button, drop a like on it, continue to comment and debate and all that kind of good stuff. We will be back next week. Goldberg could be champion. Who would have thought? 2025. Bill Goldberg could be WWE World Heavyweight Champion. Just putting that out there. So what a week. So yeah, we'll review everything. Of course, it's going to be a big week. There's lots of reviews. So that's what we'll be caught up in next week. And any other business that comes out of it and all the fallout from everything else. Stevie Night Heat was awesome. It was absolutely awesome. So until next time, folks, have a safe week. Appreciate it. Bren, as always, boss stuff. Big ups, Sean. Love having you on as always. And the anger meter might be back next week. He might be too happy after missing 2 weeks in France. And yeah, you never know. He might even have been happy with Evolution. It might go well from we shall see. But until next time, folks, have a safe week. Talk to you soon.
God bless.
Yes.